What had started out as an uninvited visit to Greenland by a delegation to include JD Vance's wife Usha and the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz turned into something else entirely by the time it finally happened today. It turns out that US representatives went door to door on the island in advance of the visit as part of what was described as a charm offensive. Whether you believe the charm part or just the offensive part, very much down to your perspective. They were trying to identify some enthusiastic residents for the Second Lady to be filmed meeting. However, they found none. Even a local travel company that had initially said yes to a visit cancelled once they picked up what was going on around the trip. Tupilak Travel, based in the capital Nuuk, posted on their Facebook page that the visit had been cancelled, and they said this: when the US consulate called yesterday and asked if the US Vice President's wife Usha Vance could visit our store on Friday, we replied that she would be happy to. After closer consideration, however, we have now informed the consulate that we do not want her visit, as we cannot accept the underlying agenda and will not be part of the press show that quite of course comes with it. Greenland, they finished, belongs to the Greenlanders. Jesper Steinmetz, a reporter for Denmark's TV2 channel, said, "They have finally understood what the Greenlanders here in town have been trying to tell them for a little over a week. We don't want visitors right now." This would have been awkward for JD Vance had he been capable of self-awareness, based on his justification a few days ago for why he was personally joining the expedition.
And you know, there was so much excitement around Usha's visit to Greenland this Friday that I decided that I didn't want her to have all that fun by herself, and so I'm going to join her.
Instead, Usha got to have what was no doubt boundless fun, trailing her husband around an official visit to the American military base on the island and nowhere else. Now, Greenland, of course, is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. Vance posted from the plane that he was on his way there and looking forward to it. And that tweet was in response to Donald Trump Jr. sharing an article by Conservative commentator Ned Ryan saying this: "Unfortunately, the visit also comes on the heels of an ugly, dishonest spat initiated by Denmark, which, after receiving bad press following decades of mistreating the Greenlandic people, is deflecting with attacks on the Second Lady." Gives some clues as to how the MAGA faithful were spinning the delicate politics of all of this. So, no surprise then that in advance of the visit, it was being trailed that JD Vance would be making a speech slating Denmark because, well, did I mention that lack of self-awareness? And so he did. And this is what he had to say.
Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change. And because it hasn't changed, this is why President Trump's policy in Greenland is what it is. Now, what the president said in his State of the Union address, and he was very clear about this, is we respect the self-determination of the people of Greenland. But my argument again to them is I think that you'd be a lot better coming under the United States security umbrella than you have been under Denmark's security umbrella.
At least now that we've seen what JD Vance had to say about Europe in the private group chat, we know that he's really speaking from the heart there. And they're really surprised that no one from Greenland wanted to pose for pictures with them. I mean, really? By the way, you know who loves the idea of strong countries annexing weaker ones? I know this will be a shocking revelation, but yes, Vladimir Putin. He referenced Trump's desire to annex Greenland in a speech yesterday to Russia's Arctic Forum in Murmansk. He noted that America's plans in relation to Greenland are serious, and he said this: These plans have deep historical roots, and it's clear that the US will continue to systematically pursue its geostrategic, military, political and economic interests in the Arctic. As for Greenland, this is a matter for two specific countries. It has nothing to do with us. There speaks someone who'd like you to accept the implied conclusion that the minor matter of Russia and Ukraine is similarly a matter for two specific countries, and you should therefore be minding your own business. But there you go. Trump and Vance at least have Vladimir Putin sort of on their side, so take from that what you will. Meanwhile, in Greenland today, following the recent elections, coalition talks concluded with the formation of the new government of Greenland. The next Prime Minister is Jens Frederik Nielsen, who has been clear about his own views on all of this posturing. He said this: "We don't want to be Americans. No, we don't want to be Danes. We want to be Greenlanders, and we want our own independence in the future, and we want to build our own country by ourselves." The Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has spoken this week praising Greenlanders for standing firm in the face of the recent intimidation tactics from America. She said this: "The attention is overwhelming and the pressure is great, but it's in times like these that you show what you're made of. You have not been cowed. You have stood up for who you are, and you have shown what you stand for. That has my deepest respect." The question really is, what comes next? Trump has said that the US will take control of Greenland, quote, "one way or another." JD Vance organised a charm-stroke-offensive visit where they could go and badmouth Danish government, knowing that Greenlanders ultimately want independence from Denmark. But if the plan had been that that would make Greenlanders go, "Yay, we could get out from under the heel of Denmark by, crawling under the heel of Trump's America," well, you have to be remarkably full of your own hubris to think that was going to be a winning pitch. So Trump and Vance have got their initial answer, a big, fat Greenlandic no. We know it won't stop there, so the question is, what are they actually now going to do about it? My initial presumption is that they would go for financial and propaganda measures in the first instance, economic sanctions against Denmark almost certainly, move more US forces onto the base that they currently have, start pushing Russian-style disinformation propaganda onto Greenland social media channels. All of that can be done while NATO partners can still just about pretend to themselves that while that's bad behaviour and they might mutter about it under their breath, the alliance is still just about holding together. Economic sanctions would cause some discomfort, but Denmark exports a lot more to European countries than it does to the United States. And since Denmark is part of the European Union, hitting it with sanctions might well provoke a response from the EU acting as a whole. What about if it goes beyond that? Well, one thing that's clear is that Denmark's current message is that it has no intention of backing down. So, for example, the chairman of Denmark's Defence Committee, Rasmus Jarlov, had this to say when asked about it on CNN.
But can you envision a scenario where U.S. and Danish forces somehow come face to face over Greenland?
I certainly hope not. But that's up to the American government. We're not going to back down. We're not going to hand over Greenland, regardless of what type of pressure is applied to us. So I certainly hope it won't come to that. Yeah. There is a lot at stake here, because this is not only a matter of being reasonable to Denmark and Greenland, it is also a matter of the entire Western alliance. Nobody's going to be allied to a country that tries to annex parts of that country's territory. So if the US wants to be a global leader, and we've been very happy to let the US lead the world, but then you have to behave. You can't just attack your allies and try to take their territory, while at the same time trying to help Russia to gain more territory in Europe. So we think American foreign policy is going in a very bad direction. Yeah. And we're very, very sad if we are going to lose the great relationship we had with the United States for so many decades. We think it has served both sides, and we're very happy to continue to let the U.S. lead. But this is just this is too much, obviously.
This is the central dilemma. Nobody's going to be allied to a country that tries to annex parts of their own territory, or indeed the territories of their allies, he might have added. It was Trump's initial comments about Greenland and Canada shortly after his inauguration that first tipped us off that he had really absorbed the Putin mindset on the world order, the might makes right plan. Now, so far, he has kept just the right side of the old world order, whilst outraging its precepts on a more or less daily basis. He has assaulted allies with tariffs and insults and threats, and irrevocably altered relations with countries such as Canada and Mexico, but he has not yet gained an additional inch of territory for the United States. And it seems that he won't do so unless he follows the logic of his position into really breaking the ultimate modern-day taboos. In the puerile chat exchange between serious figures talking about bombing the Houthis in Yemen, JD Vance and Pete Hegseth made passing reference, while insulting and railing about Europe, to the US being the only one who could act against the Houthis, at least, quote, on our side of the ledger. Well, it's reassuring that they still see themselves as being on the same side of the ledger as the Europeans. They still fancy themselves as being part of the free world, in spite of the implications of their stated positions. So are we approaching the put up or shut up moment, where they make the decisive break from the world of United Nations, where nations have a right to self-determination, regardless of their size, regardless of their geography? The US is fueled, apparently, by endless arrogance. They certainly care nothing for the wishes of Greenlanders, but so what? What are they going to do about it? This is going to be the most instructive detail about how this coming 4 years is going to play out. And we could be getting feedback on all of that quite soon, I'm guessing.